How to write a book. The easy way is to sit in front of a camera and tell you a bunch of stuff to do. But no, today we're going to take our time and dive into the world of a writer so you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Because trust me, this is going to be a fun ride. So sit around and let's get started. Hi, my name is Antoinette. I am a writer and welcome to the stage of creativity, aka my workspace. I have seen a lot of step-by-step videos on how to write a book, and most of them are just telling you, oh, you have to do this, oh, you have to do that, but those are just words. Yeah, it is nothing compared to what it really feels like to write a book, which is why today we're going to be journeying into the life of a writer, aka me. I've been writing stories since I was 12 years old. So I think I am more than capable of taking care of this video. So if you want to learn more, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. Let's go. Okay, I had to move from my workspace to this part of my room because this first stage of writing a book doesn't usually happen at the workspace. The workspace is basically just a place where I sit down and write if I want to write extensively. But most of the time, the story ideas and modifications made happens here on my bed. The first step to writing a book is, first of all, you need a story idea. And I don't mean something based up of some tropes you read somewhere. While that can work, but if you want to go extensively into building a story that people will love, people will dive into the world and be like, oh my god, this is so cool. Yeah, you need the story idea first. Now, one thing you need to know is when you get the story idea, you need to write it down. Story ideas come at anywhere. They could happen anywhere. It could happen when you're asleep. Yes, I've had story ideas that come when I'm asleep. I've had story ideas in the bathroom while I'm taking a shower and doing other stuff. I've had story ideas when I'm cooking. I've had story ideas in church while sermon is going on. I've had a story idea while I was in church. They could literally happen anywhere, in the classroom, in the bus rides. Just make sure that you're always surrounded by a sticky note, and I should have a pen around here somewhere, because you're not always going to have your computer with you, and sometimes you may not necessarily have your phone with you. So in order to avoid, stories that touch, you gotta have something like this, or maybe a small notebook that you carry with you everywhere. When you get the story idea, write it down so that you can expand on it. Before we move on to step 2, let's do a little practical exercise here on the video. So let's say I was just randomly sitting here and watching K-drama, and I suddenly had an idea for a story. I'm surrounded by newspapers, so let's pick one of the headlines over here and then turning it into a story. Okay, let's say, no, that one's a bit boring. Oh, yes. World leader mourns as Queen Elizabeth dies at 96. Rest in peace to the Queen. It's a story that happened very recently, last month. It happened last month in September. And I'm presently filming this video in October, so everybody should know about it by now. I'm not prophesying the Queen's death or anything. So let's base the story up of a monarch dying. So let's say the queen of a kingdom is assassinated, and that sparks a war. This kind of story ideas work for fantasy stories and sometimes action stories, but it's mostly fantasy stories. And it would also help if you kind of take it back to the medieval age. But if you want it to be a lot more modern, it's up to you, the writer, to decide what time zone you want your story to be set in, because that will help to not confuse your readers. So let's move to the step 2 of how to write a book. Now that you have your story idea, what you want to base your story on, even though this is something we got off newspapers, it's something that we could work with. Step 2 is creating a plot around your idea. Your story idea that you have is just one sentence. A queen getting assassinated, and that sparks the war. Let's say the queen is loved by her king, and the queen is young, of course, not 96. The queen is loved by her husband, and a neighboring kingdom, the king of the neighboring kingdom, was interested in the queen when she was alive. But this particular king won her over. And the other king is jealous, so he sends assassins to kill her. Kind of like, if I can't have her, no one can. That is, well, that's a very simple plot, I guess we could go with that. Yeah. So building the world of your story is actually very important. Like what I just said right now, it's very important for you to be able to build the world of your story, because especially if you're writing fiction, yeah, because basically what you're doing is taking your readers off of the real world into the world of your book. You want to keep them reading, and you want to let them know how different the world in your story is from the real world, or how exactly the same it is, or rather how similar they are to each other if you are using like the same time. Because some people write fiction stories, but they write it in such a way that it reflects what is happening in our society, kind of like to show you what's happening, but you may not see it when it's like happening around you, but when you read it in a book, it's a whole different like experience. So building the world of your story is very, very important. That's the second step to writing a book. Let's move on to the third step. Now we've built our world. The character development. This is actually one of my favorite parts of being a writer, where you have to develop your characters, because I suddenly feel like a parent. Yeah. I get to pick a character, give them an age, give them a name, personality. Let's just say character development is where every writer gets to play God. It's like the most important part. You have to develop your characters. Like right now, let's say from this story trope that we have, queen getting assassinated by another king, and then it sparks a war. And here's the thing about the assassination. How would you even be sure that it was the jealous king that did assassinate the queen? Because he couldn't have her as his queen. It could just be a random person or a random enemy of the present king. So right now, from the story idea that I have given you, we have three major characters, which is king number 1, king number 2, the late queen. She's dead, but she's still a character. And it would also be nice if I'm actually writing the story to have a little bit of flashback where I get to talk about how the queen is like. No, I'm not talking about all those friendly memories, like the ones in the movies, when the wife dies early. I've seen a lot of videos like that on like other video platforms. They're really funny, honestly. But like you could portray the queen as anything, especially now that she's dead. You can portray her as a dictator, as the nicest human ever, as a pretty flower. Yeah, all of those could work out. This next step in writing can be different for like so many people. And the reason it can be different is recently I have been very active in the writing community, especially on TikTok and on Twitter. Like I said, you can go check out my profiles. And I learned that there are 2 types of writers. I didn't even know about that like before, and I've been writing for a very long time, which is actually very important for you to be part of the community, because you could learn some things from there. So in that community, I learned that there are 2 types of writers. There's the pantsers and the plotters. The pantsers are the people that write on the go, like they're the ones that they don't necessarily have to think of what to write. They just open your computer and then they start typing, and the words flow from your heads to your fingertips and eventually to the screen, well, to the keyboard. Yeah. And there are also people who have to plot out everything chapter by chapter, which takes us to the 4th step of writing a book today: planning the chapters. Because now we have a story idea, we have 3 main characters, we have the world that we're building our story in, yeah, we have all of that. But then we still need to plan the chapter one after the other, so that the story could progress from one event to the other. That would be easy. You can't just write a very long book with like no chapters. Eventually you're gonna have to break it down. Chapter 1, chapter 2, maybe include a prologue and an epilogue, draw a map if you have to. All those things aren't really important. The map, it's not really important. But if you're extra like me, you can go ahead. Let's move on to the next stage. This is step 5 of how to write a book, and it is the most important step among everything that I've said. I know that I've said a lot from like the beginning down here, but this is the most important step because this is the life of every writer. Because being a writer is a lot more difficult. In this particular stage, this is where you sit in front of your computer for hours and stare at a blank screen. Take for example, I have a story idea which we developed here on this video. But let's see if I'm going to be able to come up with a single line.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Writing is the most challenging part or the most challenging step in writing a book. Getting a story idea is very, should I say, easy because it comes at random. You're not the one that controls it. And when it comes, all you have to do is build on it. And building on it is not a bad thing. Sometimes you could feel very motivated to write your story, and then as you go on, it becomes something that you never want anyone to see because you're embarrassed and you think that what you're writing is trash. Fun fact, most of the time, I always think that what I'm writing is trash. There was a time I had to step back from one of my stories for a year and then come back to read it. And it looked like a stranger wrote it and not me. So the writing process, the actual writing process, is not very easy. So next time you see a book and it's high priced, don't just think, oh my god, books are so expensive. Do you know how or what the author did to write that story to become the wholesome book that it is? Anyway, my friends, this is where we're going to end today's video on how to write a book. This is actually my first long video, book related or stories related, and trust me, you're gonna see a whole lot more content like this. So like I said before, if this is your first time on my channel, please subscribe to my channel for more awesome videos on writing stories, creating plots, character development, Wattpad stories. Yeah, my Wattpad peeps, I'm here for you. So please just follow me on my social media, and of course subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.